Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 151 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo. And today, this is going to be a really great conversation. Chris and I are excited. We've been talking a little bit before we went live. This is an area that a lot of e-commerce people really struggle with. We are entrepreneurs at heart, and really digging in to our financials is a struggle. So we have the perfect solution with our guest here today, Sam Hill, the founder of ecomCFO. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I hope to clip that video of the perfect solution. That's and we'll use that as a video testimonial.
Yeah, you can have it. Yeah, it is for sure. That's all yours. Clip that out later. But it is. I mean, I think that this is going to be a really good conversation because I'm speaking for myself. I was telling you, I mean, I've got a finance degree, and that's it's the area that I struggle with the most. And I know that there's areas where we're leaving money on the table. We're so focused on all the different hats we have to wear, like launching products and running ads like we do with Solozo and managing them. There's a million things we got to manage, inventory, all this stuff that I won't call it the boring stuff. That's probably a bad way to say it, but digging into financials is the less sexy part of the business, I would say. So it's a struggle for us. But
yeah, I think so. But it's like everything else. Your operations aren't perfect. You put in time, or you outsource it, or you create processes around it. You do the same thing for marketing and advertising and customer service, and you put a lot of time into how your products are packaged, the efforts that go into it. You can drive people to your site or your own email list or whatever. And finance and accounting is no different. You got to put in the time. You need to create the process. How do you, review your numbers? How do you create projections? Who handles the books? How are they managed? All that stuff. And it's just like everything else. You're going to get in exactly what you're going to get out exactly what you put in. So yeah, it's not that it's incredibly difficult. It just takes time and diligence.
It's a good way of putting it. You get in what you get out what you put into it. So I'm excited to talk about these. I know you got a bunch of hot topics we want to talk about as well. But before we do all that, if anybody doesn't know ecomCFO, tell us. You got the floor for a few minutes. Tell us like your background, how you got into this space, and how you decided to focus on ecom specifically, and what you do with ecomCFO. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in client service my entire life. I started at a startup like 10 years ago, and progressed through being an auditor and all of the really fun, boring accounting stuff, and went to business school and did what every MBA does, and goes and gets a big consulting job. And I thought I was, God's gift to consulting. And I realized very quickly that I hated it, and I was only going to be happy if I created something for myself. And so left consulting and was really just a freelancer. And I was doing anything for everyone, finance and accounting related. And I looked up after a year and I said, okay, well, I've done work for venture capital firms and private equity, and I had a professional poker player as a client, and it was all really interesting, but it doesn't scale. And I looked at, the 50 companies that I had worked for and said, okay, well, e-commerce makes a lot of sense. Like, I always got along really well with my clients, and they were very open to remote work. This is way before COVID, obviously. And I just thought that finance could add a lot of value because no one was looking at profitability or projections or creating processes around it. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of great solutions out there, but I do think we do things a little bit differently. And I like to think that we're a step above the competition. And so, yeah, ecomCFO is about 2 years old. We do outsource CFO, bookkeeping, and my new favorite business is bill payment, which is also a huge pain point. Would love to talk about that more. But yeah, and we specialize in e-commerce, obviously. We have a lot of Shopify only sellers. We have a lot of Amazon only sellers. We have folks that do their own manufacturing, FBA folks, drop shippers, subscription businesses, you name it. We've pretty much touched it.
So Sam, I'm checking out your site here. A little bit of bio. It says you like to follow a Bob Ross tutorial on your back porch.
Oh yeah. Oh man. I've consumed so much Bob Ross content. And I eventually said like, okay, well, I actually need to do one of these. And so yeah, sat on the back porch one evening and did one. Actually gave that to my mom for Christmas because she really liked it. And it's actually, I don't know. I mean, I think you guys are both married. I see your wedding ring.
Yeah,
I'm still single. But well, regardless if you're single or married, it's a great date idea. A great date idea.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, I had to bring that up. I was like, what is this Bob Ross tutorial? I got to hear about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
My ex-girlfriend got me on Etsy, like a knitted Bob Ross paint there. I don't even know what it's called. But it's like she framed it and it's like Bob Ross, and on the canvas it just says Sam. I don't know, what an aside, but thanks for bringing that up, Chris.
Sorry. It's just unique stuff like that. I gotta see that.
I love it. Keep nice and relaxing. Old Bob Ross. Super relaxing.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta have something to wind you down. I'm not like
clear the mind out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not like have a cocktail or a beer every night kind of guy. But a nice, Bob Ross video or easy ASMR video, it totally does the trick.
Easy to please.
So you guys didn't know what kind of podcast this was going to be today.
That's why we love this stuff.
Why we love doing it.
But yeah, so where you want to go from here? You want to go into our hot topics?
Sure. But before you
review them,
well, let's talk about, because there's all types of probably ecom business operators that are watching this. They'll see this from just starting or even pre-starting, like trying to figure out what they're going to sell, to people that are doing millions a month in revenue online. At what point does it start making sense for somebody to really start taking seriously, to outsource this, to bring on a sort of a financial advisor into their business? When is that a good time to do that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I think that obviously when you're just starting and you're doing everything and the business is, you're doing $1,000 a month in sales or $10,000 a month in sales, does it make sense to have an outsourced CFO? Does it make sense to have someone paying your bills and doing your books? All of it? No. Like the business just can't support that. Should you just go ahead and have someone do your books, and can you find that resource on Upwork or using something like Bench? Yeah, that's totally a good option. And then once you get in the $50K a month range, you definitely want to have someone doing your books, obviously. But on the CFO side, I think you can go a couple different routes. You can either have someone like us that are looking at your books every single month or in your projections and whatever strategically is going on in your business. If it's this whole, container disaster from China and what you're going to do about it, or a lot of the questions that we get is, when's the right time to hire a person to manage logistics or returns or customer service or whatever, and how much can I afford? And should I hire them as a contractor? Should I start them off as part-time? What if I hire them as full-time and W-2 them? What am I going to owe in payroll taxes? How do I pay them? Am I paying them through Gusto or ADP or through TransferWise or PayPal, or pick your payment platform? But yeah, so I mean, there are financial coaches out there. There's people that can just do hourly projects on Upwork to as just bouncing off ideas or whatever. And then I think there's that kind of next level where you're, $1 million seller. And then I think that number, for whatever reason, is a real turning point. And to say, okay, we have a serious business now. This business can, support me full time and, for my lifestyle. And so now I have to make the decision, am I really going for it? Am I really trying to grow this business? Or am I kind of happy where it is and I'm just going to kind of manage it, let it run its course, but I'm interested in doing, 5 other things. And I think if the answer is I really want to take this seriously and grow it, then that makes the most sense to reach out to someone like us to say, okay, now I need a dedicated finance person walking through all of these issues month to month, or sometimes it's week to week, and understanding exactly how we're going to grow. If it's just an Amazon strategy, if it's Shopify, if it's a retail strategy, how am I going to grow this business? Where do I need to allocate those dollars? And how am I managing margin? How am I managing demand and inventory purchases and all that kind of stuff? So it's the longest answer possible that I could give you, but it's about the $1 million mark. But certainly, if you're trying to go faster, or if you have some investor capital or something, it may make sense to do it a little bit sooner. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's right sizing a finance resource for the level of scale that you're in.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of really interesting points that I think business owners don't think about a lot. That is, just the way you pay someone. Are they a contract a contract, or are they an employee, or which makes more sense? Just stuff like that. There can be a lot of potential money saved or money lost, and just decisions like that that need some advice.
So no, sorry to cut you off.
Right.
But one of our clients, they're a great business, but they have multiple businesses, and one of them is an Amazon business, and they've been asking me a lot, like, okay, when does it make sense to hire someone? What can I afford and everything? Well, it turns out, they stocked out of probably half a dozen of their products, and they stocked out not because of, their supplier didn't have any inventory or whatever, but it's just simply they got a little lazy and they kind of forgot to reorder inventory, and it cost them probably, all in all, I would say $10,000 to $25,000 of bottom line profit. Wow. And this is when, I'm like, you can't afford not to hire someone because you already paid for half of their salary just fixing this one mistake. So I do get some hesitancy, I think, from our clients to $2 million mark, of that kind of scarcity mentality of, okay, well, am I really going to take the leap in hiring someone? Because there's so much that goes into that. You got to manage that person if they're full-time, or even you got to manage them if they're a contractor anyway. But creating all that extra systems and processes, so it's a lot. But you have to make that decision. Okay, what am I gonna be? And it's either like the kind of scarcity mentality of, oh, I can't spend the money, or no, I'm gonna continue to invest in my business for our future. So yeah, it's a big topic.
Yeah. I can see another issue. This is something that I'm guilty of a lot, is I'm so much more like emotionally attached to my business and my products and things, that I make probably poor decisions sometimes because of that. And having an outsider take a look at everything through a different lens can make, much better decisions. Like, is this product actually profitable enough for us to keep reinvesting our cash into it, or should we pivot and do something that's going to do 2x return over that product? Would that be a better idea? And so a lot of times when, if you've invented something or if you've done whatever, you get this real attachment to it. And sometimes you make poor financial decisions. I'm sure you see this quite a bit. And it's probably where you're consulting.
Absolutely. And I'm not immune to it either. I do it in my own business, that you view something as your baby, and it's sunk cost fallacy. And are you going to cut it off now or are you going to continue to push forward? Or it's real. We're not all robots, and we can't always view things as objective as we should. But yeah, we definitely
no doubt.
And it's tough, like, because we get emotional to these products, and we think, okay, we're just going to keep scaling these until they turn into a profit, and that may never happen. And when somebody comes into the business and says, "Why you keep buying inventory for this product? You're losing." That's like a good slap in the face sometimes. Like, okay, I'm missing something. I need to get rid of it. Let's pivot and go to a different product. And I don't think enough of us have that in our corner. We're just so solopreneurs, I guess is the right word, where we just keep going. But sometimes we need to book a call or attend a webinar or whatever, just to kind of get that aha moment and move on with a different product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a ton of it is just accountability. Like when you have to put your financials publicly to someone, then it's a totally different situation. And you have to justify the decisions that you made to say, like, okay, was I just lazy? Or, why did I make this decision? What was my thought process behind launching this product or keeping this product in stock, and all those things that you mentioned. And a lot of it is not rational, but once you have to put it out there publicly and explain it to someone else, yes, and especially if you're a solopreneur, you don't have anyone else, a co-founder or anything like that, then it's a real challenge.
It gets real quick.
Yeah.
When somebody looks at your books and they come back and say you're losing money, it's like, damn, okay, I guess I need to pivot or something or whatever.
Yeah.
I think especially now also with all these aggregators that are buying up e-commerce businesses, if your goal is to exit your business, then you're going to have to put this in front of somebody at some point. You might as well make sure you've got your best foot forward, where you're presenting something that's really a very good business, because you've had consulting on which way to go in the meantime. So you could be leaving a lot of money on the table at your sale if you don't have everything cleaned up and tight before you go that route.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people, we have some clients that are, doing probably 3 to 5 million in sales and there are newer clients and they haven't really taken a deep dive on their books, and they're so concerned about marketing and launching new products and everything that their cash flow position is a serious problem. And they're employing 5, 10 people, and eventually you're going to get to the point where there's no money in the bank to run payroll.
It's going to catch up to you.
Exactly. And I think what's even worse is I see these situations sometimes where we're just looking at the bank account, and then we're saying, oh, well, Shopify is offering me $500,000 from Shopify Capital or some of these other like revenue-based financing options. And they have their place. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not the cheapest capital for sure. But like there's a right time that you can accept those offers, but it's just so easy to accept it. To say like, oh, okay, we'll just take another $500,000 at 20% remittance, and then that gets you through for 3 or 4 months, and then the vicious cycle continues, and without doing the hard work of actually going back
you are preaching to the choir. We've talked about this numerous times on our show. We've been burned big time by that type of lending, just because the way, especially with e-commerce, where you're laying out a lot of capital up front, and then it doesn't all come back fast enough to sometimes make those large payments that you have to make. We fully get it. You're preaching to the choir on this one.
Rob Peter to pay Paul, like just keep just going into big circle.
Yeah. And if you're continuously running a deficit on your business already, like it's going to come to an end. So you better figure it out. and what is your plan to mitigate it? And I think sometimes too, going back to this whole kind of ego thing, the idea of not growing as fast as you want to grow really challenges people, because they have this idea in their head that, oh, okay, well, we were at, $500,000 last year, we're on pace to do $2 million this year. And then in their head, the projection is, oh, well, in the following year, we're going to do 5 million. Well, that may be true. That may be possible. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a cash flow strategy, and you're going to need a ton of capital to do that. And then if someone comes along and says, actually, you can't grow that fast, or actually, your business is losing money, what are you going to do about it? The idea of scrapping a product or not doing that product launch or cutting spend in somewhere is real challenging to some people's egos. It's a real issue. But again, it's not about you as a person. It's what can the business support objectively, and what would a third party come in and do as a more rational actor. But yeah, it's so hard sometimes to look at our businesses that objectively.
Well, we talk about this all the time. I mean, if you're running this business, there's so many things that you've got to be doing, and outsourcing to professionals is a really smart decision a lot of times for all that stuff, whether it's the way your pictures look, or the way your website's designed, or the way you're generating traffic, or running your advertising, or anything. And finances decisions should be the same thing. It's a huge part of your business. So all right, I know you got we want to get into these hot topics, because there's a lot of things going on right now. You've got 3 things that you think are hot right now. So let's dive into those.
I do, yeah. I'll let you guys pick what you want to cover first. So I got contribution margin, and if I can explain what that is. 2 is the container costs and logistics stuff, and number 3 is cash.
Let's just go right down the list. Let's start with contribution margin.
Okay, so contribution margin, and first I'll just explain what this is. Yes. So I think there's, people look at their books, or they read articles, or listen to podcasts or whatever, and they hear net sales, net revenue, gross margin percentage. They may or may not have heard of contribution margin. And then, net income, or net profit, or EBITDA, like all these terms. I think it's really important to actually know what the definition is and know what it means for your business. And again, there's not a ton of kind of set rules, but I would consider gross margin your gross revenue minus discounts, returns, product costs, and freight in, meaning freight from China or Latin America to your Amazon warehouse or third-party fulfillment center or whatever. So that's margin. You got all these variable costs. You got shipping, you got advertising, and advertising is kind of split between the ads themselves and retained that you're paying your agency. You've got your pick and pack costs, and you may have some other variable costs. So once you subtract all of those, that's what I consider contribution margin and contribution margin percentage. And then you subtract out all your fixed costs, your rent, your fixed salaries, your own salary as an owner, all that other stuff. And I think the pitfall that I see is, number one, are we calculating contribution margin at the business level? And then two, are we calculating contribution margin at the SKU level, or at least at the product family or product type, or at the business line level? For example, if you have a subscription business, you should know what the subscription business is making and the non-subscription business is making. Because I mean, most subscription businesses offer a one-time purchase, you know, especially if they're like selling on Amazon too. You should know what each one of those business lines is doing and be able to make reasonable assumptions to parse out, particularly the ad spend, because that's the hardest to attribute. But you should be making a reasonable assumption and knowing, you know, within reason if those businesses are profitable or not. So that is like the biggest pitfall that I see is, you know, you've outsourced your bookkeeping, someone's sending you your P&L, and you look at it, and hopefully it's on accrual basis, but most of the time it's not, because cash is just the easiest thing to do. And accrual is more difficult. So hopefully your books are accrual basis, but you should be looking at not just gross margin, but also, I think more importantly, contribution margin.
Yeah, interesting. I can tell you right now, I'm not looking at that enough as I should be. So like at what point does that start? Like what are you looking at when you're looking at that contribution margin? Is there like a number that you're trying to hit? Like if it gets below a certain percentage, is that an issue?
Yeah, I mean,
where is that line, and what does it matter? Like what type of product you're selling, et cetera?
Of course, yeah. No, it definitely all matters. Yeah. is the answer. I mean, the first step is understanding what your break-even revenue is and making sure that you are actually profitable. And if you're not, what does my contribution margin have to be in order to get to profitability? So the calculation is very simple. Break-even revenue is you take your fixed costs, so all your salaries, rent, and everything, and you divide it by your contribution margin. And that is how much gross revenue you need to break even, period. Okay. So that's the first step. So we need to define if you think you're losing money or if your accountant is telling you you're losing money, then you need to know what the goalpost is. And obviously there's multiple parts to that equation. You can reduce fixed costs, is part of it, or you can increase contribution margin, raise prices, figure out what's going on with your ads. How do you make them more efficient or more profitable? Negotiating with your suppliers to get better terms or cheaper product costs, or whatever it is. But that is the formula, very simply. So I think that's step one. And it doesn't make sense to have any other conversation until you've determined what that point is.
Yeah, and it's really difficult, I think, just to touch on one thing, because like advertising, it's like if you advertise just on Amazon, I mean, it's like inside Soloza, we can break out your advertising spend at the SKU level, like where it's going. But if you're advertising on Facebook and Google and everywhere else and driving traffic, it's really hard to figure out how much ad spend is allocated to each SKU. And that would directly affect that contribution margin.
Absolutely.
If you're that wrong. So
absolutely. Yeah. And again, you need to start with the business as a whole first and make sure that you know what that is, because it is obviously you can go pull all the reports from all those ad platforms, look at what you spent, and like, let's put aside what they attribute for a second and just, how much you spent. And so you can do the calculation and at least get a ballpark. And then but I think the problem is just throwing your hands up in the air and saying, oh, well, we don't know how to do attribution and it's really hard, so therefore we shouldn't do it. Like the universe doesn't care.
Right.
Like the universe is going to reward you for results, and you going to figure this stuff out and doing the difficult thing or the hard thing. And it's going to become a problem either at this level of scale or the next level of scale. And as a business owner, if you hire an agency or someone to do your advertising, great. But you should also have an understanding of how they're calculating attribution, or how they're allocating it at the, or how they're setting up the campaigns at the product level, or at the brand level, or at the subscription level, or whatever. So again, ignorance is not an excuse.
Yeah.
And it's going to come up one way or another.
Well, all right. Let's talk about the transportation, the logistics that's going on right now.
That's a big deal. That's huge.
This is huge, and there's obviously a huge financial impact. If you've got $300,000 of your capital sitting outside of Los Angeles for 2 months, just waiting to get into the port, that's a problem. And if you're paying, 10x what you used to pay for a container, there's a lot of things you got to do with your, whether it's your product pricing or whatever, to make up for this. So talk about the issues you're seeing right now with freight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I don't have a magic solution for processing the shipping container any faster in LA. Mm-hmm. I wish I did. It'd be great. I'd create a whole nother business around it. But the key is again, how does that impact your business, and what are you going to do about it? And I don't think the answer is, oh, well, we just have to accept it that it's more, and I'll figure it out later. That's not an answer. Well, that is an answer, but I don't think it's the right answer. And I think this gets back to, number one, if your books are accrual or cash. If it's cash, you're going to recognize that entire $15,000 shipment in the month you paid for it, and it's going to make your numbers look real rough for that month. What you really should be doing is using more of like a standard cost methodology to say, okay, for every widget that I sell, a portion of that freight cost is being allocated to that widget. And so what is my standard cost whenever I sell a widget? How much cost do I recognize? And guess what? It's more. It's more now that you're paying $15,000 for a container when you were paying, $2,500 months ago. So that obviously impacts your gross margin and contribution margin. To what extent? Don't know. If you're a larger seller, the impact's going to be less. If you're a smaller seller, the impact's going to be more. But it could tilt the scales in a way in which you decide not to carry that product. Now, like once it stocks out, assuming that shipping prices and the container prices are going to remain constant, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, and then obviously, looking at what can I get at manufacturing in Latin America, or, what are my other mitigating solutions? So, but the thing that you can control are your margins and contribution margin with the environment that we're in today. And you need to do the work to make that calculation to determine, okay, am I going to raise prices? Am I going to discontinue this product? What am I going to do about it? And again, ignorance is not, or just throwing your hands up is not, not a solution.
Oh, it's so easy though. Just to, I was kidding.
It's so easy. It is so easy.
It's easy for the short term.
Yeah,
it's so easy.
But this is something that Chris and I have talked a lot about in this show. Is we are so hesitant, especially on Amazon. If you're like on Shopify and other platforms, adjusting your price is a little easier. But on Amazon, you're so worried about if you raise your price, having your sales velocity slow down, that there's a lot of hesitation to do that. But in a lot of cases, it's really dumb not to raise your price, or especially like if you're going out of stock or something like that. You can maximize your profit that you're getting by doing things like stop advertising and raise price. That way you're getting more money for the units you're selling if you're not going to be going back in stock. So I think we have a hard time doing things like that. And again, this is where an outside perspective can make a big difference.
Yeah. And helping you work through some of these issues. And look, these aren't simple issues to solve. And there's a ton of variables, and there's typically not really a right answer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of less wrong answers. And there are some definitive wrong answers. But yeah, I mean, that's business though.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about
really know if
Let's talk about cash. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark, and you tell me where I'm wrong here. It's probably bad to have too much cash on hand because you're not using it to create more cash potentially, and it's bad to have too little cash. So managing it is important. Where am I close?
Yeah, you're really close. And no, I mean, the common questions that we get all the time is how much cash should I keep on hand? And I think the simple answer is, what's going to help you sleep at night? Some people are more comfortable with less cash. Some people, as soon as their bank account reaches, less than a certain number, then they start freaking out. And so there's no hard and fast rule. It's a lot of psychology. I like to think that if I was a 7-figure seller, I would want to have at least 3 to 6 months of burn available. So 3 to 6 months of, if my Amazon account gets shut down tomorrow and I have these ongoing fixed costs of I'm paying people, I got an office or a warehouse to have to pay rent in, can I make those payments for 3 to 6 months? I think that's a decent general ballpark. But also, 2008 rolls around, all the people that had a bunch of cash on hand made a lot of money. And I had one client last year, actually, they had $3.5 million sitting in the bank. Wow. And he was just saving it for a rainy day. And they didn't lay off a single person, and they were able to double down on a lot of their product launches and advertising and everything, and captured a lot of market share that they wouldn't otherwise have captured. And so I do think having a little bit more cash set aside makes a lot of sense, because guess what? Your projections are probably going to be wrong.
Right.
And stuff always takes 3 and 4 times longer than you think it's going to take. And you're always going to need a little bit more than you planned on. And having that extra cash on hand as a backup is a really nice idea. And it allows you to do cool stuff. You can negotiate with your suppliers and maybe over order a little bit and get better terms. Obviously depending on what kind of products you sell. You can consider, I've got a client who's a drop shipper. He's got a very healthy cash balance, and he's considering buying one of his suppliers, or instead of drop shipping, taking the 10% of SKUs that sell through the best, just going to purchase those products and managing it himself. So it allows him to do all of these really interesting things because he has that leverage.
And what are you advising to build these cash reserves? I mean, is there like a percentage of your profit that comes in that you're setting aside? And I mean, is there a sweet spot that you're trying to hit there, to where a percentage of profit gets reinvested, a percentage of profit is into your cash on hand fund?
Yeah, I really like. I mean, I'm not. This is by no means my original thought, but I really like Scaling Up's methodology here. And their basic principle is you want to get to a point where your net income percentage is around 15%. And then their argument is once you get to 15%, you invest the difference between 10 and 15% into your business. So in additional advertising or hiring or whatever, once you so you continue to invest until you get down to 10% net income margin. And then once you get to 10, you fight to get back to 15, and you repeat the cycle, and you're stashing away that 10% into your cash reserves. And like, if you want to take an extra distribution or whatever, if you did really well, okay, yeah, sure. But I really like their methodology there. And maybe that range is a little bit different for you depending on the business type or whatever, but the concept I think is beautiful. And it gives people some pretty good anchor points to look at and say, okay, here's where I really can start to start understanding what is reasonable. Because the problem is like, everyone says, oh, well, I have like my net income margins are 30% or 35%. It's not always good, because that just means that there's going to be more competition faster, and those margins are going to go away rather quickly. So you better be reinvesting that cash into continuing to building your moat, whatever that means for you. So it can be really dangerous.
It's such a good point. Chris and I can attest to that too. You can have really high profit margin products, and then competition comes in real quick. Yep. And if you're not ready for it, it's a great point. All this stuff is so good. There's so much I feel like to talk about on this. We've got to get you back on here at some point in the future. We hit on 3 topics there, but we could hit on so many more. And I think it's really valuable for everyone listening, for sure.
Bill payment. Another hot topic.
Bill payment. Say it real quick. I know you want to talk about bill payment.
I'm so excited about bill payment, which is the least sexy thing about business, but it's such a huge pain for a lot of our clients. And I kind of had an aha moment a few months ago. We pay bills on behalf of our clients. We manage their bill payment for the majority of our clients, but we've never really offered it as a standalone service. It was kind of like and we do this thing too, until I started getting more inquiries, both from Amazon sellers or e-commerce businesses and agencies, because they're paying, you hire foreign contractors in Pakistan or in India or the Philippines or Latin America, and you're paying them through 10 different platforms. They may or may not send an invoice, and it sucks to deal with every month, because you've got to get the invoice, and maybe you've created a separate email address, but it's probably buried in your email. You got to go through your entire inbox, figure out what do you owe different people, and then actually executing the payment. Do you have to pay them on PayPal? The fees are high, or you just like paying them on TransferWise? Do they have a Payoneer account and all these different platforms? And your bill payment process probably sucks. And so what I realized is it's not really the managing the payments is pretty easy. The hard part that I think we have a really solid process now is getting our clients to change. We change their process for them. We say, here's how we're going to operate from now on. All you have to do is go into the platform and click approve, and like, that's it. We got the rest. So that was the big aha for us, and we're rolling it out as a standalone service. So yes, I've never thought I'd be this excited about bill pay. Because going back to ego, I always thought that the high end finance stuff it's cool, like it's sexy to talk about the future of your business and how do you get to 100 million in sales and all that stuff. But it's a lot of the bill payment stuff that takes up valuable time. And if you're able to outsource that for whatever reason, like we outsource everything, but we still pay our own bills because it's close to the bank account. We have this like crazy stigma attached to, oh, like only I can pay my bills. Like that makes no sense whatsoever. Like we rely on other people to manufacture our products, but we don't rely on other people to pay our bills. That just doesn't make any sense. So we're trying to change that.
I like that. That is a pain point. That is a huge pain point. And just going through the emails to try to find the invoices, that's me all the time. So,
it's a real thing.
Well, thanks for doing this. And so before we go though, I want there's people listening right now that they're intrigued by this. Their business is hitting that 1 million mark right now, and they maybe need to take this jump to have more CFO type services. And there's going to be a lot of people that are really interested in this bill pay. So how do people get in touch with you? Can they start working with you?
Yeah, just check us out on our website at ecomCFO.co, or feel free to just shoot me an email, sam@ecomCFO.co. It's pretty simple. We don't do a lot of social, there's no Twitter or anything. I personally don't have social media. After reading Cal Newport's Digital Minimalism, I ditched it a while ago. So just good old fashioned email is a great start.
Awesome. Well, I encourage everyone to do that. And we'll definitely have you back on. This is there's so much to talk about. It's fascinating to me. I learned a lot. Contribution margin, that was good. That was good. Definitely good to learn about that. So thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it. Everyone who's listening, if you like content like this, please make sure you subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. We're on all of them. Also, if you'd like to see these live streams, make sure you go to Solozo's Facebook page, LinkedIn page, and our YouTube channel. You can subscribe, turn on notifications. You'll see when we go live with awesome guests like Sam. And we do it almost every day. So please do that. And also, if you're selling on Amazon right now and you're struggling with your advertising, if your ad spend is killing your contribution margin, then Solozo can help. We can help automate your advertising. We can help get you to your target ACOS on your campaigns. We'd love to show you how to do that. Go to Solozo.com. You can book a demo with either Chris or myself. We'll walk you through the entire platform. We'd love to talk anything Amazon and strategize for your advertising. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Thanks, Sam, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. See ya.
Thank you so much.